A very good morning and a warm welcome to this week's edition of The Dialogue. Every Saturday we sit down to look at the big stories of the week, put them into context, and the panel gives us detailed analysis of weekly events. My name is Sim Apollo, and the panel is set to take you through those big stories. A very eventful week we had, and within the week, my attention was drawn to the death of 7 students, pupils of Kasana Junior School in Masaka City, when their school dormitory caught fire. There's a time when we brought up this issue here, we discussed it, and we were asking if the issue of rampant school fires has been given due attention. 7 kids perished, but this is not the first time or second time. Even last week, St. Teresa Kisubi Girls Primary School also caught fire. It is really becoming serious, reflecting at another incident in October 2022 when 11 students of Salama School of the Blind also perished in an inferno when their school dormitory caught fire. In this era of terrorism, you get concerned that security must dig deep and find out if these are just accidents. It's indeed very unfortunate, and we bereave with the families of these kids, the school administration, and the country at large. But also, within the week, the Opposition National Unity Platform opened their new headquarters in Kampala amid conflicts with security. On the first day, they were denied that chance to hold their event, but on the second day, they were allowed to go on and open their headquarters. Congratulations to the National Unity Platform for having a home. Very many other stories. The good news possibly was the news about the justice for the 2 foreign tourists who were murdered in Queen Elizabeth National Park, and a Ugandan who was their driver and guard. The Ugandan Army, the UPDF, informed us that indeed the killers, the criminals, were apprehended and others taken out of action. Well, we salute the UPDF and other security forces. But very many stories around the week. I will introduce the panel now, but on our top story this morning is the Idi Amin's legacy, the debate around the Idi Amin's legacy. Ugandans are seriously debating the issue of Idi Amin's legacy after President Museveni flatly rejected the proposal to have an institute named after Idi Amin. Let me introduce the guests in the studios. Richard Baguma Tinkasimire, resident guest. I'm really profoundly honored to have you back on the show. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much, Apollo. When I came in, I congratulated you.
Me?
Some of us have been trying for about 4 decades now. I am sure Rugarama has a conceptual theory and framework to explain that. So I'm happy to be with Rugarama therefore. And charity, and as always, God is very great. God is all powerful but all gracious. We go wherever we go, and we are back to share with our audiences. And Apollo, I'm very grateful for our audiences. Wow. They sit with us, they prioritize us. Wow. So I'm really grateful to them as well, and I send them greetings.
You congratulate me, but you should be congratulating Salt Media. We made 9 years this week, and we are still in celebratory moods.
Salt Media is only 9 years.
9 years.
The radio and the television.
Indeed.
Oh. I was involved
Yeah.
in the processes of the birth of Salt Media. And it felt a little longer than that.
Okay.
I think my memory is, as I lose hair, the memory also goes. Charity, don't worry for me, I will not put any artificial hair on myself. I will remain with my bald head.
Wow.
But it's nice to see you, of course.
You will put on some dye,
Good.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations
Oh, man.
to Salt Media. Let me congratulate particularly my friend Arosius. You see, Arosius, Pastor Bujingo, is a trench man. He's a trench man. He goes into the trenches and fights. And this one was one battle. So I congratulate him particularly.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you. Charity Himsibwe, the Executive Director, Uganda Electoral Laws Institute. And she's back. Welcome to the dialogue.
Thank you very much, Apollo.
So we had disappeared together.
Yeah, you know.
And there is no connection to that.
There is pun intended.
Rugalama will head the probe into that disappearance.
I was dying to come back and find Richard, and I'm so happy that on my return, Richard is here. Very good morning to all our viewers, and Apollo, indeed, congratulations to Salt Media.
Amen.
I remember that the dialogue when it was starting, it was one of those shows that started out small and has now grown into a very gigantic show that is attracting more and more attention. I think what also needs to happen for Salt Media as we go forward is to keep cutting out small clips and share more of those small clips across the various platforms, even on phones where people only have 1-2 minutes, not necessarily the whole recording, but just the small clips that are catchy and can make someone want to go and watch everything that Salt Media has. Congratulations. Wow. It's not easy running a media house in Uganda today with no adverts. And it's good you're celebrating, but for us who haven't seen the cake here, we also want bits of that cake.
We cut the cake yesterday.
If there is no cake, at least groundnuts or at least something from KFC. Hello, Pastor Lojas, we can't be coming here for nothing.
Bananas.
We don't want bananas. We want something special. 9 years, that's a long time.
Oh,
Happy birthday for 9 years. And
Thank
Apollo,
you.
I think why Richard was pushing you, congratulating you for Noop. You're wearing Noop colors.
But you also look good in yellow.
But you're wearing Noop colors. Thank you, me, I look good in yellow. Maybe I have Noop yellow. I have Noop yellow because if you see my hair bun is Noop, the blouse is yellow, so Noop yellow.
Okay.
But for you, you have red, blue. The building was red, blue.
Yes, these are our colors actually, Salt Media colors.
Yeah, they're Salt Media colors as well. So we don't know what Salt Media is telling us. Good morning.
Good morning. Comrade Rugarama is the chairman of the Pan-African movement, and is not his face is not new in the minds of the viewers of the dialogue. Speak to our viewers, comrade.
Yes, good morning, Comrade Apollo. Good morning to my colleagues. I congratulate Salt Media for having moved this distance. Indeed, like my colleagues have observed, in the present circumstances, not just in Uganda, media, running a media house is not a small thing. It involves so much. So congratulations once again.
Wow.
And to the audience who are always with us, my senior brother thanked them. Let me just add my voice. It is very important not to take each other for granted. That you sit, you listen to us. We cannot pretend to be the absolute custodian of knowledge.
Yeah.
We do indeed have some knowledge, but we want to share our views. And we are happy that you listen to us and you also give us feedback.
Wow.
We call upon you to keep tuned all the time.
Wow.
The week, briefly, the West and America in particular has continued to expose themselves as hypocrites, especially in the face of what is happening in the Gaza Strip. There's the moving of the president to the north on the issue of the Bararo. In my opinion, just a statement is that in the face of integration, where we are talking about free movement of the people, the goods, and what the entire EACA treaty purpose is to achieve. Also looking at our constitution and remembering that it allows that any Ugandan can move anywhere within Uganda legally, mark the word, acquire land and stay there, establish business. It becomes very unfortunate to hear some of the sentiments from some quarters that some people are not supposed to be where they are.
Yeah,
It's a big debate. I hope we shall get time. And I'm in no way telling the audience that people can illegally move and suppress others where they have lived and keep to live. No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Comrade Rugarama. I'm preparing to have a good debate on that particular issue because it's still developing. Even His Excellency the President released a missive last evening. I hope with now new directives on that issue of the Balalo settlement in
the fourth or fifth executive order.
Yeah. Charity, pick one story this week. Just a comment on one story, like he did before I introduce my topics for discussion.
So one story that stood out for me was the Uganda National Oil Company, the bill that was presented in Parliament, and what it means for UNOC to be set up. And also, if it is truly true, like the minister was telling us, that previously they could not intervene on the price, on the pump price. For us as citizens, what we saw during the time of COVID was that petrol stations were sprouting up everywhere. It seemed to be a booming business. Everybody wanted to boom with business, open a petrol station. Then came a man called Starbucks. Over who is he? Over who is the owner? I don't know. Everywhere we turned, even you in your neighborhood, there is Starbucks up here. And every land was taken, Starbucks. Then came a man called Rubis. Hey, we've been wondering we have been wondering who are these people who have suddenly taken over Kampala with a stomp, and it's in the oil industry. So now when UNOC comes and says, we are a Ugandan organization going to be solely in charge of supplying petroleum products, and we want to cushion Ugandans in terms of scarcity, it looks like there is hope on the skyline. However, looking at all the other institutions where government always says we are going to buffer Ugandans and they end up not buffering us, we don't know. It's a mixed bag. There's a time when government told us we are producing electricity, we have Isimba, we have all these dams, Karuma, we have built all of them, so electricity bill is going to go down, the rural areas, you're going to get electricity, it's now going to be in full supply.
It's still up there.
Please go to the villages and see how many villages have been connected. Just a small percentage. We still have about 32% of villages that...
The national grid.
Yeah, and yet we have 70,000 villages in Uganda. So 32% of 70,000 villages.
Okay. So you are excited that this bill...
But mixed bag. I'm excited about the bill, but I'm not sure if actually the buffer will come.
to have UNOC, a Ugandan government company, manage
sole
importation, sole importer of petroleum products.
Yes.
Richard, a quick one. This week, are you going to talk about the NUP headquarters?
No. For me, I think what has been making me smile is the Chabazingas.
Oh,
I've been seeing the hundreds of millionaires flowing in, and I'm like, there is money in this country. I'm actually intrigued.
Yeah.
450 million, 350 million, 120 million, a billion the other time at the dinner. This has been uplifting for me. There is money. Yeah, absolutely. Saturating.
Doesn't it also tell of how Ugandans love their culture, love their traditions?
I don't think that's a culture. I don't think that if you had another parallel culture event, people would give you the same amount of money. No, no, not at all. The other one that has been quite intriguing, and for me, is the nyege nyege. Nyege nyege is also at hand, and I'm like, this country has happy moments. You can miss them if if you go to look at the doom. Yeah.
Okay, very many incidents.
Don't also forget that it is rumored that one bank actually flatly rejected the request from the Chabazinga to make any confirmation.
They must be frowning when you look at the people lining up to give. They must be wondering if their PR approach was the right one.
I think if that is true anyway, it was a very unfortunate statement from one from such a bank.
All right. We wish His Highness the Chabazinga of Busoga, successful and happy events on 18th this month. There was a story of the IGG dropping charges against the former and interdicted executive director for UNBS, David Livingstone Ebir. Very many incidents and big stories played out this week. But our first topic for discussion is across the border in Rwanda. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda lifted visas or travel restrictions for all African countries to Rwanda.
And so did Ruto.
And he from his statement, he says, any African can get on a plane to Rwanda whenever they wish and will not pay a thing to enter our country. I have gathered this was during, he made this statement during a summit. And it is the third global summit of World Travel and Tourism tourism thing. Rwanda has leveraged on tourism, on the tourism sector. I can tell you, they are in sports. I think they are one of the sponsors of the Arsenal FC in London. At one point, Uganda, the story that he even enticed the gorillas to cross from Uganda to his place, and he's actually earning big through. I love the way His Excellency Paul Kagame is leveraging on tourism as a sector. While we are struggling, but we know that tourism has potential to bring in foreign revenue and to supplement the budgets of our countries. And it is anticipated that once this policy is implemented, Rwanda becomes the fourth nation in Africa to remove travel restrictions for Africans. And you, Rugarama, as a Pan-Africanist, I wonder, why would I really need a visa to travel to Nigeria or South Africa? Because the other countries with visa restrictions, I think it is Benin, Gambia, and Seychelles. Now Rwanda. For us in East Africa, we have at least moved. You just need to have on a national ID, travel to Kenya, travel to Rwanda or Tanzania or elsewhere. But why would I need a visa to travel to an African country? Have we really ignored this big, good strategy in promoting tourism and trade and within ourselves? You'll start from there, Comrade Rugarama.
Yes, you see, Ndugu, one thing must be appreciated, that what we hear Comrade President Kagame doing, hear him say and later on do, is not the very first time that we are hearing it. We are glad that at least for him he's implementing it. When you go back, even prior 1963, at the formation of the Organization of African Unity, the Osejefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, his speech was very elaborative. And among other things, beautiful as they were, he told his colleagues that we need to have a borderless Africa. Although we have not interfered with what the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference did, the geographical boundaries that were drawn for obvious reasons, but we should at least allow that we deepen trade on the African continent. So what you see even in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is not something new that it surfaced around 2015, 2018, around there. It is something that the leaders, fortunately, realized that it had been talked about and it had never been implemented. In achieving a borderless Africa, in defeating the artificial boundaries that were drawn by the colonialists, there is need to have what Comrade Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, is doing. And the same has been announced by Dr. William Ruto, the president of Burundi, Kenya. And their efforts in Ghana. The regional groupings you see, be it East African Community, be it ECOWAS, are all geared towards achieving a borderless Africa. That if we are talking about doing away, having a uniform passport, let it be. If we are talking about doing away with visas, after all, the initiators of these tariffs and non-tariff barriers themselves have since abandoned them. We know for a fact that now in Europe, the moment you enter France, you moved all the rest European of the 20, is it 21 or 27 countries?
27.
Why? They imagined then and realized that by allowing free movement of people and goods, you are going to increase trade and a lot of interactions and generate a lot of revenue. Where on the African continent we have, now it is, and we thank God that it has even jumped 27% intra-trade. And it used to be much less than 18%. It is just in about 4 years that it has jumped to 27%. When Europe, which removed these restrictions and did what Comrade Paul Kagame is trying to do now, and his other colleagues, is at 72% intra-trade. Asia is well over 67% because of removing the restrictions, unnecessary restrictions in terms of movement of the people and the goods. We are much
So Africa as a
late.
continent, we have been lagging behind in realizing that this policy has potential to boost trade, tourism, and interaction of Africans.
Absolutely. Paul Kagame is not inviting. You see, from you are making a joke here that he has created an environment where the animals from Uganda, animals will always move. they move. I want to imagine that even in Serengeti, they cross from Kenya, they go to TZ.
There was a joke that he planted, he set up a plantation of Memvu and the gorilla.
Then we need to do that.
That could be a joke.
Yes, absolutely.
But if it is a joke, it's a serious strategy to attract.
Our senior
to
brother,
boost his towards
our
their
senior brother
potential.
Egesa, who is not just a professional but a practitioner in the arena of tourism, tells you that Uganda, even Rwanda, which we are praising, that we are jokers when it comes to investing in the tourism sector. That we are nowhere near, and yet the potential we have is amazing. Uganda, I think, is the largest or second largest in terms of hosting bird species. That even if we said we concentrate on only birds and we marketed people to come, we marketed that product, that let the entire world come and see birds. The amount of money the government of Uganda would generate is amazing.
Good.
So I want to...
As you wind up.
Yes, I want to conclude by saying that we are well over 60 years late in realizing the importance of allowing Africans to move freely, such that we can also have goods and services move freely for us to be able to realize our full potential.
Thank you. Charita Himbisibwe, we boast that we are gifted by nature's Uganda, and indeed we are gifted by nature, but looks like we have not leveraged on that potential. Even I will ask you, do we look at visas as a foreign revenue, a channel to attract, to get foreign revenue? I don't know why we are waking up now, even though we have not actually done it, but our neighbors are planning it. I think Ruto has said in December he will also
by next year
he would introduce the same policy. Start from there. What do you think about General Kagame's decision?
So if you look at President Paul Kagame and his leadership style, he takes Rwanda like he is the chief executive officer of that country, and that it matters to him what development happens within his country. So he's very deliberate and very strategic in particular sectors. Not all, because he has also realized that he might not be able to achieve everything with little resources. The difference is that with us, we seem to scatter so many resources in different things, and we end up achieving very little. If Paul Kagame was the one in charge of the oil in Uganda, for example, the strategy, the planning, the replanning, the rethinking around it would be high level. And even the ordinary citizens would begin to be engaged in the process, to begin to warm up to the oil, to the production, to the chain, to content, local content and participation, to the companies and how they can trade within that sector. All that he would be dealing with himself, following through with other people. Of course, micromanagement is not the best style. But when it comes to African style of management and gaining something for your country.
And achieving results.
Sometimes you have to do a bit of micromanaging. So he, for a long time, has been on infrastructure development. If you look at the amount of money for construction of roads in Rwanda and you compare the amount of money for construction of roads in Uganda, they are a far wish from themselves. And yet the roads in Rwanda carry the same heavy trucks like Ugandan roads carry heavy trucks. You know, we had very good roads up country. In fact, when you drive from the city and go up country, we can't talk about Kampala. Kampala, let's just leave it in its mess. When it rains, it floods and the potholes. And let's close our eyes and assume we don't know Kampala exists. And let's look at the highways. You will see that that Tirinyi highway is a very clean road, but all the time it has to go through repairs. It has done about 3 or 4 repairs. For Rwanda to repair one road, it takes them about 2 or 3 years before they repair that road. The cost of constructing it itself is very high. Now, what happens with developed countries is maintenance becomes the issue. President Paul Kagame picked on a man called Tony Blair when Blair had just left
The former
being
British Prime Minister.
Prime Minister of UK. And he decided to ally with Blair to learn how have the British done it? What gains do they get? What are the strategic areas that I can work with to change Rwanda, even if my human rights record is still wanting? But I change Rwanda and begin to sell the story of Rwanda. You know that Rwanda does a lot of propaganda more than Uganda now. There are many things which we are far ahead of Rwanda that it can't even begin to compare with us. But because we don't have a propaganda machine that sits in Kampala and the global and the globe, so we fail on attracting. We need a propaganda machine. He invested in a propaganda machine. A propaganda machine meaning people who do PR for Rwanda in the US, in Sweden, in all these places.
But he has real work done on the ground also.
That work done on the ground can be compared to some of the things we have done here. I have told you, okay, if you look at his capital city, Kigali, then you can see some little changes that have actually happened in Kigali. But for us in Uganda, I told you, close your eye to Kampala first, because Kampala has issues to do with politics, management, and so many things that we have to first close our eyes. But let's look at the broader picture of Uganda. Go to the Busia border. We have good roads there. Drive from here to Mbara. The problem with here to Mbara is now that bridge, which always collapses, the Katonga bridge. And if we are able to resolve the issue of Katonga once and for all, and have good road network even to the other side of Uganda, then it will be a good one. If you go to northern Uganda, you don't want to talk about Kona Kamdini. That one has failed us. I don't know who bewitched Kona Kamdini and that place.
What are you bringing up?
What I'm bringing up is that for us, we have some infrastructure development, which we have done. But we need a PR mechanism 24/7 to sell the story of Uganda gifted by nature to the world. And also sell the story of Uganda is a peaceful country, relatively. Okay, let's use the word relatively. Relatively peaceful country, because of course we have pockets of instability. So we need to do PR for our nation to be able to attract those.
Do you agree that we actually we have been in slumber? I mean, in regard to this decision to lift visa restrictions for Africans.
Of course, because President Museveni has been singing about this, you Africans, you don't want to be united, you Africans, everybody thinks in his own silo. So we had expected he would take a lead. He has been singing about it, so why didn't he take a lead? I think that Kagame has done a very good thing, and Ruto is following through very well. Indeed, like my brother has just said right now, if we allow for free movement of people, innovation will go up. trade will go up, but also because it's different people coming together. The thinking of Ugandans is different from the thinking of Kenyans, it's different from the thinking of Tanzanians. You're jostling for a few resources, but the interconnectedness there causes intellectual growth. Okay. So you think differently and you strategize differently. So you grow as a group of people. Okay. You can decide to organize yourself in terms of production, crop production. You can decide to organize yourself in terms of technology production. You can decide to organize yourself in terms of oil production. The organizing will come naturally with interacting with other people.
Thank you so much. And Richard, we have had the Comrade Rugaramas, the Pan-Africanists, saying this and that. What do you think about them forgetting that lifting visa or travel restrictions could actually be a Pan-Africanist move?
Yeah, and you see, that's why I have a challenge. I have not seen the Pan-African movement, for example, focus its energy on that. I may not be informed.
No, I will give information. You carry on.
I have not seen that.
Because we have seriously engaged the African Union.
No, I wanted to come to the African Union. I have not seen the Pan-African movement take that on as a key and drum it. Because my understanding of the structure is that you have Pan-African movements in country.
Yes.
At the national level.
National chapters.
And I have not lived in only Uganda here. I have lived elsewhere. But also the Pan-African movement leaderships in the past have been personal friends beyond just the Pan-Africanism. So the decisions about open grounds and open skies and open waters among African countries these are decisions that have been taken since the 60s. I think Rugarama talked about that. These decisions have been agreed. The African Union has very elaborate resolutions, declarations made by countries about open borders and open skies and open waters.
You remind me of the Trans-African Highway. I think that was at the times, during the times of Kambarage Nyerere.
We are still building it up to today.
Why? Why has it taken long? The Trans-African
and that's what
Highway.
I'm coming to. And that's why I was telling you about the chapters. You see, when people go to Addis Ababa and speak, and at the chapter level here, where the real decisions are made, that is why we are discussing this. Kagame, President Kagame is not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth. I think this is the something to announce this. The countries where I think we, the Pan-Africanists, should be doing work is we are not doing it.
Yeah.
If we are doing, we are trickling. We are, running around, and that is where the decisions. You see, the African Union can talk. The decisions are made at the national level. The decisions have not been made. I have asked this in other forums. I said, we are celebrated for having 1.5 million people from our neighborhood entering here illegally, and we embrace them after they have entered. So if 1.5 million people can come on their own to live here, forget about the ones who come and go. The ones who come to live here, and we embrace them therefore after they have come. Why do we need more visas? 1.5 million have demonstrated to us that they are coming anyway to live here. So what are we visiting for? Because those are the questions I was asking. Tell me about Tanzania, about Congo, that we had a visa regime with Congo.
Really?
How many people cross that border every day? Brothers and sisters and what? So it is, for me, it is the continued, I don't even want to call it confusion, because many of these leaders are not particularly silly. It is the slumber that you have been talking, the continued slumber. That when I am going to South Africa, that you see, South Africa expects Zimbabweans and Botswana people to have a visa to go there. That's a joke. But we maintain this. We, you know, we keep stamping. The first time I went to, when they had done the borderlessness in the European Union and the Schengen.
The Schengen countries.
I would hesitate to move through the airport crossings because I landed, I think, in Amsterdam. And then I was going to the 3 or 4 countries.
Even when there are no restrictions,
Yes,
you
I
feel
was
you are
hesitating because
restricted.
previously they would scrutinize me, read again my, you know, my visa. And I said, but these guys are doing this. So why aren't we doing this? And you see, that's a right thing to implement what the leaders decided a couple of years ago. President Kagame now is doing at a national level. President Ruto has announced it. I can tell you, the previous countries that did this a couple of years ago have not seen floods of people coming in. Nothing. The numbers have not fundamentally changed. So, Apollo, we must accept our confusion, disorientation, and deal with it.
Then the president these days talks about ideological disorientation and
No, it is not this time. Because if you have the 10-point program, which later was expanded to 15, I don't know how many points now there are.
There are 4.
So the ideological, of course, I think Charity is talking about the...
Do you now concede that you Pan-Africans have really missed this thing, have not thought about this as a Pan-African strategy? I mean, that brings out that real Pan-Africanism.
This is the information
Opening borders for all Africans.
This is the information which I wanted to give. I certainly agree with Comrade Baguma. And Comrade Baguma has been around in the Pan-African circles as a participant, not just observer, for a very long time. At least I can say that without fear of contradiction. I want to believe Charity has been also.
In Pan-African
I don't know.
I have
but
observed.
Maybe by association. Because if she has been a real participant, I would have known. But anyway, the truth of the matter is that we do own up to our failures. And some of these failures, even to our audience who are watching us, are not of our own making. Let me tell you that who is failing, the person who is failing the borderless Africa, for instance, it is not the Africans themselves.
Really?
I'm telling you, there are certain levels of engagement where you reach. Has it ever struck your mind that the failure of Africa as a continent seems to be uniform? You think all the leaders that have
are you saying, wait a minute, even if Comrade Kagame has made the decision, are you saying implementation may also have challenges?
It will have, because you see,
for African countries,
he will be dealing with certainly first of all, the statement he has made and the decision he has taken is very good, and he's not alone. Others will come along the way. Let me tell you, just look at the EYACA itself. We know, for instance, why the first EYACA failed. Do you know that even at the stage at which we are, there are 4 stages of East African community. So far, we are supposed to be moving the 3rd one, the monetary union, the currency. It has been pushed. It has been pushed ahead. Do you know why it has been pushed ahead? Do you know why even the first 2, which we claim to have gone over, we have not done 60% of what we are supposed to have done? You will think
so
that
there are
it is
external forces.
Absolutely. You will think we also have our own challenges as individual countries and leaders, but the truth of the matter is that the person or the forces behind the stabilization of the borderless Africa has got a lot to do with the handwork. Now visible handwork of imperialism.
Thank you.
But the information I wanted to give...
We are running out of time.
There is information which I wanted to give. The information which I wanted to give is that the concerns of Comrade Baguma about the Pan-Africanism, we have been engaging, and we are still engaging the African Union, because it is the body with the authority finally, where the leaders
The
sit.
African Union that
Yes.
cannot even fund its
No,
activities.
that is another thing.
We will come to, we
There
will
are
bring,
people who
we'll
have
bring
called
it.
African Union a toothless dog.
We will
Others
bring
have even called it no dog.
It's
But
no
African
dog.
Union
really
is
no
a
dog.
body whose purpose, initially when it was set up, it was to make sure that it liberates physically Africa from the colonial rule. It did that.
I saw them backing at
It would be unfortunate, by the way.
at coups in Guinea and
Just a
and
minute.
Niger,
We are
but
not saying
eventually-
that African Union is a body that has achieved
I'm
or that
running-
it intended to achieve.
I'm running out of time, and Richard Baguma, in one comment, Charity raised the issue of, she calls it propaganda, that we have failed as Uganda to market our potential in tourism and all other issues. Just one comment, because we are going for a break.
We last night I met people.
Which Kagame actually has done very well.
Last night I met people in the tourism industry, and I was asking them how the incident affected them. The incident of the killing of the couple, and they operate from. No, one operates from the north, the Chobe side. One operates from this Kasese side. And they told me there was an effect, but it was not as big as they actually had worried it would be. And partly is because we have built a reasonable assurance that we are a region that is safe. One of the things they were explaining to me is that actually the tourists come to the region, not to one country. So when you have an increase in the tourists that go to Kenya, you are likely to have an increase that will also go to Tanzania. They do a round or go.
And we have a uniform tourism visa.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that is, and they market, you know, the tour operators who market us are not the ones based here. They are the ones based the other side. So Apollo, we have not marketed our country as much as we have not reached our optimum.
As we should.
However, we should also, because I travel, I have been in this one.
In just 1 minute.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We have also, Apollo, done a reasonable job marketing this country. Because, I can tell you, we have a tide of young, especially Ugandans, who demarket the country.
Let's come back and possibly we will look at also that one. I think it's very serious.
The non-patriotic
that we have
Ugandans.
many unpatriotic Ugandans here who actually paint a grim picture of this country when actually it may not be the case anyway.
With no iota of
This
Pan-Africanism.
is the dialogue.
uninformed
We
and
go for a
excited.
break and we return after a short while. Don't go away.
Soul Television, Femunyo.
I didn't think about you.
Welcome from the break. This is the big show, the dialogue. My name is Sima Polo, and Richard Baguma Tinkasimire, a communication expert, is with us here. Charity Ahimsirwe, a human rights activist, is in the studios, and Dr. Daniel Rugarama, the chairman of the Pan-Africanist movement, is also in the studios, and we are looking at the big stories which made headlines in the week. Back from Rwanda lifting visa restrictions, let's look at the debate that has taken the country by a storm. The Idi Amin's legacy. And this has been prompted by President Yoweri Museveni's rejection to a proposal that an institute should be named after the former president, the third president of Uganda, Idi Amin Dada, whose reign in power is globally described as a reign of terror, tyranny, dictatorship, and all you can say about it. But it looks like a section of Ugandans have developed a different perception about this history, this bad legacy of Amin. Others think Amin was a patriotic Ugandan, a leader of character, maybe who committed mistakes, but he was a good leader. And we'll be asking why is this debate coming up now? Is it about the president's decision, or maybe there is something that has prompted Ugandans to take this serious debate? And Richard, you'll take the first shot.
No, I think first, there's no problem for me, I think, fundamentally with the general issue of Amin and as part of the history of this country. I think the problem with this current one was, one, the messenger. The messenger, you see, whatever news you are carrying, if it has a messenger who is considered unacceptable to where the message is being taken, the message will not be listened to.
You announce somebody's death, they will think it is you who even killed him.
Who killed the person?
Former Obonji MP?
The messenger was the wrong one for government. This, you see, Amin is not a Westerner per se. Amin is the president of Uganda for close to a decade. Amin is an army commander of the army of Uganda. Amin is a Ugandan commander who led our forces in Congo. Whatever happened there, Amin is an individual who was, he's bigger than West Nile. He's a Ugandan. So government must be part of this. And the government here means the general manager, the one she called the chief executive office. Of course, General Paul Kagame is the chief executive officer for Rwanda. Like the chief executive officer here. So first, the problem with this one was the messenger. The second was the way the message was coached. In Sebabi, yeah, this again was the way the message was coached. There is absolutely no problem with an Amini museum, an Amini institute. If it's a think tank and it's going to generate the history and we are going to understand the history, we know that the history of this country has been distorted by the captors, the current captors. They have even written books which they have changed in the second edition. History in group everywhere in the world. History is narrated by the captors. The captors have interests now and they usually distort it, we know. So, for me to have a think tank that brings people together, that we have, by the way, me have been one of those who have proposed a presidential legacy center. It's in writing. But when we are proposing it, we are very conscious of this. We first went to, the first person we went to was the person who has been the longest serving principal private secretary to His Excellency the President. Because we thought she understands the mind, but also the dynamic. We went to several ministers. I will mention one who has been in the docket of security, of gender, of public service, of what? The Honorable Mururi Mugas. Yeah. Because we knew these are the where it will be a gender issue, it will be a public service, what is the record, it will be a security matter. So we're carefully looking at the individuals so that we don't get this. We are all in policy and program lobbying and advocacy. We know you have to map. But the third thing was the general timing. And the reason for me, what I think is for CAPS, is a comeback. This is a nice time to launch a comeback. And this has been very successful. Which is not bad. No, I am, you see, for me, I'm not saying, I'm not talking about the other party. I'm talking about to these ones who have been the recipients. And if you are launching a comeback, this has been a very successful project for a comeback. All of us, I have been on 2 other platforms this week, are being asked about their mean. So I told them, for me, there are 2 very critical exports for Uganda, at least in my travels. Every time I would travel, when they say, where are you from, Uganda? And they say, Idi Amin. I thought this is an important export. We should domesticate it here and export it by welcoming people to come. Let me tell you what shows you that the biggest blockbuster film that talks about Uganda is the King of Scotland.
The last King of
I
Scotland.
met Whittaker, and we were discussing because of his charity and the peace initiatives in South Sudan, in Uganda, wherever in Congo. And I said, my president, and he said, I have not had that line before. We took a photo. That is the first one. The second export is General Joseph Kony.
Kony.
Yes. The other thing is the invisible, they documented the invisible
Children.
Absolutely. It is the one record now, you can translate the code, that had the fastest growing viralness on the social media in the world. The fastest. That thing has grown that fast.
Also associated to the Kony War.
Absolutely. So why don't we harness these exports of ours? And so the only, for me, the problem was the messenger,
you think
unacceptable to the one receiving the message. The message, it was packaged because somebody has been asking for a university. If it was a think tank or a super institute, this one would be discussed. And let me finally predict that President Yoweri Museveni is actually going to champion this cause.
Of what?
Of having Amin and the other presidents documented and put in the public. He's now going to take...
When he has
He's
flatly
the one going
rejected
to
the
take
idea.
you will be challenging me here. He's the one going to champion it. It will come from one of the cadres, and he will come and launch it and
Really?
give it money.
So what prompted him to reject it outright?
I've told you, I've given you the 3 reasons, and the 4th one is taking out the thunder from him. He must be the one reading this. It is a wrong, the person... yes, it is a wrong messenger. The message coached wrongly. It's the timing. Who is the person timing for a comeback? And this man must be championed by this champion of everything.
Well, thank you so much, Richard.
That can only be said by Baguma. I'm not here.
I think I'll come back to you. There are several questions around...
Do you know how much he has
around it.
supported the Amin family? If he's against the Amins?
Not even Kony, they were seeing him recently.
But you see, we're talking about Amin.
So-
how much, which positions at the helm? Education, the scholarship. Please.
So you what you have just submitted looks to be digging deep into our earlier discussion of not leveraging on the potential that we have as a country. Because if you say that indeed if we had leveraged on Amin's bad or international image, possibly we could have very many, ripped big out of
When
it.
you travel to Kigali, which is the place that is most visited, isn't it the genocide memorial?
Yeah.
Is it a good thing? How come we all go there?
It's a bad
It
history.
has been harnessed. When you go to Germany, can you miss the
Hitler.
Nazi whatever?
Holocaust,
Holocaust?
museum.
Go to any country. Those are the places we go to. So why do we think that ours is going to be different? Look at I told you the films. Which other depiction of Uganda has
Okay. Well, finally from you, I have talked about the narrative that is now growing and being taken up by almost in all circles, that Amin actually did good to this country, and some have come to that level of comparing this government with Amin's government.
Yeah, but you see, for me, this is what I'm talking about. I have no problem with people's opinions. They are entitled to their opinions, whether rightly informed or not. We need to have an institute that studies the legacies of our leaderships over time. We need to have informed, researched, we will have these other social media opinions. That's okay, that's the right. There is no individual who has done only bad. And there's no individual who has done only good. Let's document the good, let's document the bad. Then people can make their choices. For me, what is unfortunate in this debate is that it has now been regionalized and re-regionized. Very unfortunate.
Well, but you can't run away from the fact that some people think that what happened during Amin's time is happening now. That has been the argument across the board.
No, for me, what I want to be told is what happened during Amin, if it didn't happen during Kabaka, if it didn't happen during colonialism, if it didn't happen during Obote, if it didn't happen in Uganda and elsewhere. That's what I want to be told. And that's why I want researched, informed, think tanking, well documented.
Because anyway, you have said that history was distorted.
It is
in
a
any
fact
way.
of life that history is influenced by the captors.
Thank you. Viewers, you can be part of this discussion. Please send your messages by WhatsApp or the short messaging system on 0701 609906. Tell us about this whole discussion and debate around Idi Amin's legacy. Why is it popping up around this time? And the narratives that possibly Amin did good, but only it's a distortion in the history that makes him look bad. Charita Himsibwe, tell us what you think about this whole debate.
So it's quite intriguing listening to what Richard has just been saying. However, I want to disagree, because after all, I'm entitled to my opinion.
With
like
particular aspects of it, not all of it.
I want to disagree because the historical perspective, which is what we have exported, indeed, which is what is documented across the globe. I agree with he is a big export in terms of wherever you go in this country, I mean across Uganda, especially in the West. Visit London, go to Canada, and go to the US.
Even in the Arab world.
But mainly I know about Canada and the US because of the people that were expelled, the Asians. And in fact, you find some Asians who say, oh my God, our country, we would have been there, but you know, Amin sent us away. So there are people who still hold those sentiments dear to them. If you look at our Expropriated Properties Act, that act was brought to do good, to make good what Amin had done bad, okay? To give back the Asians things that they had left hurriedly when he gave them 90 days. But Amin says he compensated them. But the government says, according to the act which we have, the Expropriated Act, there are those who are not compensated because the properties were put in the custodian board. And so up to now, there are people who keep coming to the custodian board to claim for their properties. So if they are there, is it true then that they were all compensated? I doubt. I don't think there was even time to compensate all.
They were given 90 days. Then
there is the question of Israeli and how the attack happened at the airport very shortly when Amin was president. You remember that I think the last king of Scotland builds back a bit of that, and I think about 2 or 3 movies to do with the Israeli attack on Entebbe International Airport. It can also be an export story, like he's saying, if you choose to do, but there are people who hold that memory very dear to them. Now, there are families who lost their dads, their relatives, brothers, sisters, people who went missing in boots, and churches who were badly beaten and killed by Amin soldiers. I don't know whether they were being instructed by him. Sometimes some of them said they were instructed, but it also looked like they decided on their own, because Amin had no grand norm. He ruled without a constitution. He ruled by decree. And you see, that is already a contravention of governance. It is a contravention of good standards. It is a contravention of what we believe as a people. If you read our preamble, that recalling our violent history of shedding blood, we choose this day that will never go back. But who were the people who perpetuated the spilling of blood that the Constitution alludes to? It was the time of Amin that we saw a lot of that blood spilled. So if we are saying we recall our bloody history, and there are people here, even now in Uganda, and I submit this from a very emotive point, because I know there are people who are badly affected by the events that happened during the Amin's time. There are people who are just shot. Janan Luum is an expert. Even now, he's all over the internet, and he's celebrated.
The former Archbishop.
We even have a day to commemorate Janan Luum because of Amin. And so the images of what happened during that time, and the fact that people could not talk, could not move out, they were subdued, they were coerced, still live with people. People still have them. There is a man who works with Bank of Uganda whose father was just disappeared. And they said, hey, he has gone in a boot. I know people who have told stories, and again, for me, I just survived because I told a certain story at the border, and so I survived just like that. Journalists could not talk. It was a dangerous time. So yes, there's been a repainting of the times. But there's also been a documentation of the times. And Richard is saying, look, it's maybe time for us to revisit and look at both pictures and let people decide
and bring
for
out
themselves.
the facts.
But I also want now, for the first time, to ask Ugandans to think about why we were recalling our violent history and why we chose that we want to walk away from it and that we want to distinguish ourselves from that history. We know it happened. We know we can choose to make it an export, but we have a story on Janan Lumum coming from Amin still. We have the Israeli story coming from Amin still. We have the Asian story. The Asians
The
that were
economic war of
exploited.
1974.
Yes. Now, the economic war has two sides to it. Indeed, when you look at it, Amin was saying, I want Ugandans to be in charge
Of their
own economy. And if you look from a historical perspective, Ugandans had been sidelined by the British. And the very Asians whom he told, now get out, let Ugandans also take over in their country. That was a very good thing. He did a good thing for Ugandans. He built the conference center, which people talk about up to now. He also did the sports. Everybody says he was good at swimming. He promoted sports, and for the first time we got a medal. So I hear Richard loud and clear on the part of, are there things we can celebrate about Amin? But I want us to recall that as much as there are things that we might celebrate about him, there are families that will never forget him because of what happened.
I picked something from your submission. Are you in some way saying, as we plan, as we intend to reflect on that history, we should be also cautious not to evoke the bad memories of the tyranny and the murderous regime during Idi Amin?
Correct.
So how do you learn lessons then?
I think I am saying that we need a very delicate balance and that we must take care of the feelings of the people that cannot even want to hear about Amin.
Isn't it what President Museveni is saying, that generally let's forget that history?
Yes, I think President Museveni is a politician, yes, but I agree with him on this one. The reason I agree with him, because it resonates with the preamble of the Constitution.
We
It
move
resonates
forward.
with the 1966 crisis. It resonates with the time of Obote. It resonates with the time of Amin and all the years of turmoil until 1986 when we began to get a bit of stability. So yes, it also ties in with his history as a president and the promulgation
can we
of the
forget-
The Constitution
1995
is very
Constitution.
clear. What is separate and bold says recording. Now, what people are saying is, please don't record it. Cover it, go away, move away.
Yeah, the Constitution
Constitution is
says
very
recalling the
affirmative.
violent
Recalling.
history.
Yes,
Please.
recalling our violent history.
Recording.
And the
Don't bury it.
shedding
Don't
of
hide
blood.
it.
We
Don't
choose
pretend.
this day.
Record.
We choose this day to move forward. The
Yes,
Constitution is...
and that also is good.
Yes,
We
because
choose
we are
this day to
choosing
move forward.
that on that day when we promulgated that 1995 Constitution, we are moving.
Imagine the people who bury, forget, and don't learn from their history. I don't want to be part of those people.
Okay, thank you so much. And our viewers are sending in comments and observations. Please go ahead, send on 0701609906. Send on WhatsApp messages or use the short messaging system, our usual SMS platform. Comrade Rugarama, the debate is really, really hot
Very,
around Amin's legacy.
very. Comrade Aporo, I completely understand when Charity emotionally makes a submission that she has just made. You see, it is very difficult. You may try to be dry. You're just using direct words. You may try to be dry about some of these things. But we are looking at a man who eliminated very obvious and prominent people. It becomes very difficult, therefore, to
Did he
for him-
eliminate all during his
It is said.
regime?
It is said.
It is
That's
said,
another debate.
yeah.
It is under his regime that we had the Vice Chancellor of Makerere,
Frank Kalimuzo,
Kalimuzo, eliminated.
1972.
Under his regime that we had the Archbishop
Janan Ruum.
Janan Ruum,
That was
now
closed
it is a public
78 or
holiday,
77.
eliminated. Under him, that the governor, Bank of Uganda, was eliminated. Under him, that a number of stories are told of so many other highly educated people running away from the country.
Erinayo Oliema, Oboth Ofumbi.
All of them going outside, running away from the person they nicknamed Chijambia. Literally meaning somebody who would just cut you off, either cutting the head or whatever he was cutting. Whether he was doing that one himself, which is impossible, whether through his agents, that's another debate.
Or
But
other people.
taking advantage
taking
of
advantage.
a seemingly turbulent regime
Oh,
and
yeah.
a semi-literate man who ruled, and his rule can best be described as fascist. Fascist in the sense that somebody who rules by decree, and even after taking power, 8 years down the road, does not normalize and go back to democracy. We can fault the nature of democracy we have even currently, by the way. We can try to debate, is this kind of democracy the kind of democracy that we would have loved? But that's a different debate. Whether elections are actually rigged, whether there are some malpractices within the elections, at least we have something that we can argue from. But here was a situation where somebody said, I am the life president. And indeed, he lived and acted like a life president.
Yep.
Now, I can understand that is in as far as my sister Charity's submission is concerned. I can hear and other voices throughout the country. And probably that was the background upon which the president replied a letter that was not written to him. Because that communication was not to him.
Yeah, true.
But he replied to that communication. That I don't want to set another question for today's dialogue. But that's it. Now,
Yeah.
I also understand where Apple, I mean Comrade Baguma, is coming from. Why do I say so? Comrade Baguma, as a tested and journalist who has been in the trenches of history, appreciates the fact that whether it is good or bad history,
We need to document it.
you put it out there for people. What does it cost anybody? Like, I don't agree with Honorable Semujunganda on a number of things, but I respect his views. I don't agree with the majority of his views, but I hear him, I listen to him. And I agreed with him when he made a statement. He was like, no, this institution would have been established. And His Excellency is suddenly going to retire. With good life, he would go and make a presentation. You know, of course, he was trying to be whatever he does most of the time. But my thinking is, it should not just be a mean memorial institute. It should be an institute, which I had Comrade Baguma, fortunately,
I will share with you even the concept.
is proposing. And he seemed to have moved very good step, such that we can have all these presidents and other important prominent members of who have made a contribution in the history of Uganda studied seriously from there. Now it would be, and indeed he said it, it would be those who have been subjected to that literature to make their own conclusion. So accordingly,
it's a good idea.
it's a good idea.
But the question too is, why do you think President Museveni rejects it at this point?
There is
time?
there is another, because I was still now looking at Senior Comrade Waguma's submission, and I was saying I agree with him. I can see where he's coming from as well, and this is what he mentioned, and I want to emphasize it. The messenger.
Oh,
You see, Caps Fungaro is an erratic, with all due respect, is an erratic politician who sometimes, when he's making his submissions, it will be very difficult for a number of people to take him as somebody who has made a balanced presentation. Because, look, when he brought the correspondences,
Yeah.
I loved them. He said, we wrote to the head of this, she replied,
The National
Professor
Council of Higher
Kokoro,
Education.
she replied like this, and but then again, when he makes other submissions, when he brings out the curriculum, this is our proposed curriculum, I didn't see anything to do with Amin. In fact, I was even disappointed with that curriculum. It should have mentioned something to do with the ideological something so that we can debate that as well. But anyhow, we don't just need to study Amin. No. And you don't have to say Amin. You remember the impeachment of Clinton? It was Clinton, I think, with the
Yes, Lewis.
all the people who are the senators who made submissions about the against the impeachment and for the impeachment. They didn't mention anything, the word to do with the impeachment. But they still would make submissions for and against. You don't have to mention Amin.
Yeah.
But you would still create an institution
And you name
that
it.
would teach what you want to be taught about Amin.
Okay, I'll be reading the comments right away, but Richard, you said the messenger was not the right one.
You would have
to
passed
deliver
it
the
to
message.
somebody.
But you yourself, you said you also had a concept. What happened to it? Did you also use the wrong messenger?
I've told you the steps.
It is work in progress.
Still work
Because
in
we
progress.
are going, we know where the power lies, to say no and to say yes. We are studying the terrain, we are moving with it. Because let me tell you, my kids have been to museums out of this country. And when we came, one of their school assignments was to go to the Uganda Museum. I don't know if you have been there of recent. We used to come to the Uganda Museum when we were younger.
Yeah.
Now, the Uganda Museum does not feature Amin. No. President,
We cannot
for
doctor,
9 years.
we cannot doctor history
Really?
that way.
But I think
and then they
Obote,
told me
Obote
the
is in
things are
that
in the
museum.
archive. I said, so can I access the archive? So you see, for me, this is, that's what I oppose. That's what I am opposing. On this panel, as we are seated, I think I am the one who lost the closest person, if we compare with you,
Oh, yeah.
to Amin. I didn't witness. My father came and told us. He was actually narrating to my mother and those around. He was picked, our uncle. And he was a fat man. I don't want to mention names from Isinjiro. They tried to fit him in the boot of a 504. So they were using
Idiot.
yes, Peugeot 504.
Peugeot.
They were using gun butts. You know, like you have a sack and you are trying to fit in there. And the man disappeared. He has never been seen. So when people talk about emotions, I am not sure that they lost more than some of us did. I am not sure about that. We also have seen writings people have written to say when we were across the border, we used to do actions that would provoke
Yep.
the forces of Amin and the intelligence to do certain things. We need to interrogate. They are the ones who have written personally. We need to interrogate those things. We need to document what were the roles.
Others think that possibly that what you have just said is the reason why they want this history buried forever.
No, you don't bury history that way.
But how will you manage to bury it at all anyway?
No,
You
it
don't.
can't be buried. It's
How
in
would
the,
you even manage
it's in the books of history.
Conclude,
So
conclude.
for me, I am talking about the distortions that I think we need because we must learn lessons. The most pricey form of real estate in this country and announced outside, owned by Uganda, was bought by who? In New York, in London, tell me, in Belgium,
was
tell
Amin.
me.
Idi Amin.
So why don't we, for 40 years, not have any other pricey
So you say
piece of real estate?
you also say
Don't we want to teach our coming diplomats to do that?
Did you say that President Museveni will at one point champion the project?
He's going to own it.
Where yes,
He has demonstrated that he champions historical documentation and culture as well. But it must be packaged in a manner acceptable to him. As long as
Not
he's still
through-
the chief
not
executive
through
office of
cups.
this country,
Not through
you are not
cups.
going to escape that one.
Okay, let me read these messages as we conclude the show.
The 27 guns.
Okay, this is yeah, it's another piece of history. Happy 9th anniversary to Salt Media. I know it's not easy to run a media house, more so in Uganda, as charity demands for a cake, Bogoya peanuts for the panelists. What about us, the viewers? Okay.
This is going to be complicated.
He says, he continues, like I said last week, until we realize if we don't set our priorities, straight as Uganda and Africans at large, and stand still for what we are and not be beggars or beggars, then we shall keep dreaming. Policymakers in most African countries focus on their stomachs and how to stay in power instead of investing in things that develop their natives. Credit goes to these few leaders who are trying like His Excellency Paul Kagame. Great leaders invite problems. They don't run away from problems. In Uganda, it is the reverse. Sectors that matter to the common man are the ones that are underfunded, such as tourism, sports, etc. I'm sure this is Joel. Yeah, or team Major Joel. Thank you so much for this observation, and we really treasure your comments and contributions to this show. Very fast, let me look at Abel Akampumza. Keru says, good morning, Apollo, the panel, Mr. Baguma, Mrs. Charity, and Dr. Rugarama. I'm happy to see Charity with donned in yellow colors. And your red shirt in Uganda, everything is now politics. I advise you, Apollo, and my sister Charity to either choose black. It's my favorite of Mr. Baguma and Mr. Rugarama's colors. Abel, these are good colors, we love them. And he says to me, the legacy of Amin, I agree. He is a big export following the 1972 economic war. But one thing we need to understand is that a leader has also goods and bads. So to me, the debate should entirely be on but not conclusively branding him evil. I really feel how Charity presents her submission, but again, the question should be, why do we bring the dark day today? Which means, okay. Thank you so much, Abel Keru. Thank you so much for these comments. Please keep these comments coming in. This is Frankie. For sure, when we are to compare Amin and Museveni's, these people are like the same. There's no difference. This is his opinion. While Museveni, okay, compare, the message is somehow not so clear. I mean, guys, we did not remember this guy even today. We have many families who do not like this regime. Look at Kauma's family. I think he talks about the driver of Chagulanyi. Look at the Chirumira's family. This is a very... Okay. Now I give example, if we had to forget Amin for his deeds, even we had to forget Museveni, we would... okay, this message is not so clear, but I think we get the real message. He's saying that even when you see what is happening today. You may not... You may actually feel...
You're recalling the history.
You may even think of forgiving Amin. React to that, Charity, right away. You are a human rights activist.
Yes, I know, but you may feel like forgiving Amin. I think that evil does not take away evil. You've heard evil begets evil. So everything that has been done by this government that is evil has been called out. And up to now, there is a lot of demand on government to even account for the people who are missing, including Kauma and what is his name? The one Chibalama.
Bosco.
And we are saying the Uganda Human Rights Commission pulling out, and you are body mandated to report and give accountability for what you have found in your investigation is flimsy. So I think because at least in this government, these atrocities might have been committed, but are there mechanisms for addressing the issues? The times of Frank Kalimzo, when he died, and Janan Luum, were there mechanisms
for... of this world.
Were there even Kaira and others?
Kaira died during this regime.
I think during this regime or during... but he's also amongst the people that was being asked. Yes.
No,
Was
no,
it
no. I
extradition?
was.
He was giving me
given,
But also those
high
are the different
clarification.
But
questions.
so the question is, were there mechanisms for these people to go and report and demand for accountability? And that's why we are saying Uganda Human Rights Commission cannot allow these things to fall through. If it does, then indeed what the viewers are saying about this government looking like a mean become very clear. That's why these institutions were set up. These institutions were set up to promote human rights, because in that period, human rights meant nothing. And remember, these rights are inherent. They are given to you by God.
So you fault entities like the Human Rights Commission
Of course
for
I
not
do.
championing the push for
Accountability for those lives, for the people who died and for the families who are hurting. Because, I mean, why were they being killed? They have civil and political rights.
Some people
For
think.
me,
wait
the
a minute.
debate that I would
You-
like to
okay.
invite the charity to continue with is, therefore, that after this pain, we should not document or interrogate that history. For me, that's really where I thought the debate was, and that was my problem. That however evil, however dark, we should interrogate,
Yeah.
we should document and actually pick lessons. To say recording, then never again. If we don't recall, how do we say never again then?
So in your concept, while you were looking out for the media chamber days and what, were you also digging deep into these human rights
We are not-
violations that
at
are being
this level,
committed
it is
today?
not digging. We are proposing that we should do
Establishment.
the digging. That where are our universities? We have professors of history. We have students. Where are they? Of governance? Of what? That we need to dig. Where is Mwanga in this?
Yeah.
Where is colonial governor who?
Andrew
Cohen.
Cohen.
Where are they?
And he did very well, Cohen as well.
We want to dig that.
From a
What were
historical
what were the atrocities committed by Cohen against the Banyoro? How come we are not documenting them?
Okay.
There is a statement that was made just Apollo, encourage me. In my opinion, really, and I believe in any opinion of a progressive-minded person, it would be very unfortunate and extremely unfair for anybody, even if you hated NRM so much, to say that there is no difference between NRM and Amin's regime. I want to stop it at that.
No. You don't have to stop it at
Because
that.
you see, honestly
Because-
speaking, we have mechanisms now in place, and I think that's what Charity was talking about. That all right, we may have errors here and there, but do we have glaring extrajudicial murders like it used to be in a minister regime?
No, others
Can
saying-
anybody really say that
Others,
with a straight face?
Others say that this is what is happening is done in a smart way, and during Amin's time it was so crude. And done in broad daylight.
See, whatever
That
There
is what they
there
say.
is a debate going on,
It's a claim.
which makes me think of Rugarama's debate about the Gaza right now. We hear this all the time. You have a side
On
which
human
says
rights.
this is liberation, this is a reaction to what? They have
God.
a right to
Of course,
defend
yes.
themselves. This is a right to God. They will not listen to you. So this is the thing. That's why for me, I say we must be tolerant to certain opinions.
I bet.
And then we should be able to demolish them
Who is that
with
one?
our researched and well set information.
Always a bit tolerant.
Really?
But you know it.
We must be able to do, because if they, and you see when people try to be more NRM, this is what makes more pro-Museveni than me, I usually refer them. You see, but if there are those people, the ones we are talking about pain, if there are people who lost 54 relatives, friends, brothers, husbands in a day,
100.
on 18
if that one,
November.
24th.
So if that one stands up and says there is no
in
difference,
2020. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
they are speaking from.
A very
Yes.
emotional point of view, and
so,
we
so
agree.
what then Comrade Rugarama will now come say, me as a researcher, I have studied this, I think it is categorized as he has unfair. So is there unfairness in the world? Yes, it's unfair to shoot my father while he went shopping in a shop because some people were rioting. So you see, this is the whole thing that we should not therefore say, forget it. Because that's what the letter was saying, forget.
Okay. Another message, and I think it's from Joel. First things first, when President Museveni says Amin came to power illegally, so for him, he's of the 5 years in the bush slaughtering people is legit.
And he even
The
told
person
us-
he calls was too bad, and that we should forget about him is regarded as a liberator by ANC in South Africa. And the one he claims was too bad that he couldn't allow even his body back in his country is one country led to the construction of the Uganda House in New York City. I think he's talking
That's
about,
what,
which is even better, and most of his embassies during the 37 years. Anyways, his rejection of okaying Amin's institute has just ignited us
Great.
to dig more about Amin, unless he talks to Google and they delete everything about Amin. We shall continue reading about him, either by force or not. Mr. Museveni wants to make us think that Uganda actually started in 1986. He wants us to believe that he is a saint. I want you to.
that is the
I want you
unfortunate part now.
to respond to it.
Absolutely.
People think that President Museveni, in this decision, wants to cover up the history of all past leaders. He wants to write his own history.
No, this is the unfortunate part. And I think in my concluding remarks, when I was submitting on the submissions of Charity and Waguma, I said that the compromise here, really, if at all I can call it a compromise, is to allow the establishment of an institution that teaches the leaders who have made contribution to this country. And if that is going to be named any other name apart from Amin, so be it, because a rose flower, even after being called by another name, will still smell the same. So the point really here is not to, and I'm disappointed that we can have people probably who think that history can be doctored in such a manner that you completely mutilate it. And is it you who was talking about the victors writing their history? Yes, you will never hear the proper story of the hunted. It is the hunter that will always tell the story. Even when he fails to kill the animal, he will always say, I did all humanly possible and I achieved so much.
Now
but
that
what
is,
about the one that escaped?
That is the uphill task
Yes.
I see Richard and his comrades will face to write, to bring out that real history.
Baguma may succeed.
Documentation of what
reason
actually
being,
happened.
he
When
has-
actually the victors want or have their own history on the other side.
These victors must also be told, because for me, for instance, I'm disappointed that His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni could have written, and I have gotten orders that actually he's the one who wrote the very first sowing the mustard seed.
Yeah.
Somebody who wrote the second version, I don't know if you have looked at it.
I have it. I have a copy.
Yes, you looked at wrote the second version of the sowing the mustard seed. Did a horrible job that if I can really interact with that person, it would not just be a harmonious interaction.
So what was
You can't
so,
do
so
that.
what was better? The first edition or the second edition?
Should have been left the way it is, because it tells a true story and it is not mutilated. You see, you cannot take the audience for granted and think that they are idiots.
So
honestly,
and the big question here is why should people fight with history?
that's what
And
we are
let me ask
saying.
Charity, why do you think people want to fight with history?
No, you see, you can't fight with history.
Is
The truth
it-
is you can't.
Is the idea concealment to conceal anything? What could it be?
You see, and what I agreed most with Richard in his submission was that history has been written and rewritten by the captors. And
The victors.
I also agreed with him that who creates a narrative and why do they create that narrative? It's very good to always think about those things. But when that narrative is being created and has been created, is there some truth to the narrative? Now, the problem is that I have gone academic, but the good thing with going academic is that we can then begin to do what he's telling us to do, question our history for lessons and decisions that we want to do as a people. Maybe we shall reaffirm our preamble, maybe we shall rewrite our preamble in a review or whatever it is, but in terms of condemning the killings of Ugandans without accountability for their lives, that one cuts across from Amin's time to the NRM time. No debate about it. If you kill the Ugandan, their lives are not yet accounted for, their families are out there crying, and you know it.
Parliament,
That has to happen.
the opposition,
Accountability must
the
take
opposition
place.
have
You must
boycotted
explain.
plenary sittings for now 3 weeks on
And they
account
have
of
a
missing people.
They have a good reason. They have a good reason, and government must take it seriously. And the institutions which have been put in place should stop being sycophants just for the sake of. Run those institutions credibly. Why was Uganda Human Rights Commission set up? Article 51 says to deal with human rights atrocities.
Amin's negative
They have
attitude,
enforcement
listen to
ability.
this. Amin's negative attitude against the whites is what is happening now with our president. Is Pastor Emma Busiku Manafa district.
What?
Thank you so much.
Pardon?
He says that Amin's negative attitude against the whites, I think he's talking about the Western world, is the same as what is happening with President Museveni. He's saying it is actually President Museveni, what President Museveni is doing. I think it was this week when he said you cannot tell me what I should be doing in my home or in my house.
Yeah, but the whites also go overboard.
He is
of
a
course.
sovereign state. I think we also need to interrogate that as well.
We don't have time,
But
unfortunately.
Busiku's point, from my own understanding, is that the whites, the ones who control the narrative, they do control the narrative to a big extent.
Okay.
Is that once you go against their wishes, they demonize you.
Okay.
Yes, and
And they have
before.
succeeded.
We are
for
running
Uganda.
out of time. Hi, thanks Sol TV to give us quality programming. To Ugandans, really wish Sol TV to be there until this power. He talks about somebody coming to power. I think Museveni was true to refuse because Amin really was not a correct man for Uganda. But okay.
He's also controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Please don't
Sabit Eric from Mutungo, thank you so much for your comments here, and we really treasure your observations and submissions. We are running out of time. I want to give a round of comments, just a parting shot, just a recommendation on this particular matter. I think we made it, but let's emphasize it on this matter, on the Amin's legacy. Should we build a museum of Amin and other past leaders, actually use it to promote our country, maybe, and make it a tourism business? Just a comment in just one statement, because we only have 3 minutes.
The truth of the matter is that the white man loves negative information that comes out of what he considers a downgraded society. The evils that Amin could have committed, that kind of films, the invisible children, is the kind of dark history that will be sailing in the white man's land. So there is no doubt that that would be heavily marketed and it goes viral. In the same way, you ask yourself as to why, for instance, progressive history by the president, NRM, the guerrilla war, and how what we have achieved so far since that time is not as important.
Should we build an Amin museum?
Finally, on the issue of the Amin museum, the truth of the matter is, I go with the compromise that we should have a museum actually for every progressive leader, for all the leaders, not just the progressive, so that we can take stock of what they have done.
Charity, a parting shot.
So in schools, you're taught about all these presidents. You will learn about Lule Binaisa, you learn about Amin, you learn about Obote. And so there's no problem with having a museum, and we can pick from the history of Rwanda to build a museum for all past 9 presidents.
No, in Luwero we have...
For all past 9 presidents, I want to insist, all past 9
We have
presidents, not
monuments.
just Amin, and I think that's where I depart from Richard. All of them, we need to document Obote, what did he do? They said he also promoted nationalism. Let's interrogate that. What did Obote do that promoted nationalism, that Ugandans would move across the country to
Unfortunately,
study everywhere?
I didn't hear you people give a comment on the economic war. Did it do any good?
I did. I said that it's good he gave the power
you
back to
made it.
Ugandans.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
I said it.
And
I said
you,
it's so
Garama,
we
was it
did.
a good thing?
Absolutely. Although it had repercussions
Richard,
in the immediate,
you're
but
cutting short.
it was okay.
No, you see, past leaders are swine.
Oh,
They are not
So we
swine.
we can build a swine historical center for research and studies, and we have. You know?
But even present leaders might be swine.
Comrade Waguma is being cynical. We know where he's coming from. But don't allow him to go
thank you
there.
so much, viewers. Thank you so much for your time. This is The Dialogue, and we'll be returning next Saturday, same time, same station. It is Salt TV. You can follow up these programs on YouTube channels, on Facebook, and on all other Salt media platforms. My name is Apollo. Thank you so much, Richard, for your presence. Thank you so much, Charity. We really treasure your presence today. And Comrade Rugerama, thank you so much for being part of this show. And the viewers, thank you so much for those comments and your company. Good afternoon, and God bless Uganda.